Hello everyone, it is Tuesday, September the 11th, and we are here tonight for our monthly virtual tasting. And tonight we've got two wines. Our first one is going to be Riesling. It's still a little bit warm outside, so it's nice to have a wine that you can chill down. So this is our estate bottled Riesling, 2009 vintage. Our second wine is going to be from the much heralded 2010 vintage, and this is a Merlot from our St. David's Bench vineyard, and we'll get to that one in a few minutes. But first, I thought it would be fun to update you on the harvest. It is proceeding as expected. You know, we started a few weeks early. We started just before Labor Day, which is very rare. But keep in mind that we had such a long, hot, dry summer that the maturation of the grapes was just phenomenal. We were picking, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The Chardonnay was around 18 or 19 bricks, and this was third week of August. And that's really, really rare. Normally we would hit that just after Labor Day. So the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir for sparkling wine came off. Today we were picking Chardonnay for table wine. We were also started getting into the Gamay Noir for, believe it or not, we're going to make some Nouveau this year. So we'll be looking on the third Thursday of November for some Gamay Nouveau in the classic carbonic maceration style that you would expect from a Beaujolais Nouveau. So this vintage 2012 appears to be really quite special, certainly above average. Our key focus right now is making sure that we get the fruit off the vine before they start to break down. And we had a big rain 3 or 4 days ago, and it caused some of the Chardonnay to start to break down. What we mean by that is the berries were so full that the skin started to break open, and when that happens, unfortunately, the bad rot can start to set in, and that can lead to a lot of funny off-tasting and faults in the finished wine. So what our team has been doing is going out into the vineyard and literally picking, while the bunches are still on the vine, picking off those berries that had started to split open and rot's setting in. So we've been out in the past few days doing just that, and making sure that today when we went through and started harvesting that we had good clean bunches. And that of course goes to ensuring that the final wine will be as delicious and as top quality as it possibly can be. So even though we had a fantastic summer, the make or break time for the entire harvest or the entire season is actually right now. So our fingers are crossed that we're going to get no more rain and just nice sunny days. So our very first wine this evening is going to be our 2009 Riesling. It is from our estate bottled series, and what this means is, if you look here, there's a little green stripe, and when we say that it's estate bottled, all of our wines are actually estate bottled, which means that we grow the fruit ourselves. We don't buy grapes from any growers. We want to control that raw material as much as we possibly can, so we grow it all ourselves. Wines that come from the estate bottled line mean that the fruit can actually be sourced from any of the 4 vineyards that we own. We have 2 in the St. David's Bench sub-appellation, which is our Paul Bosco Estate Vineyard, and our St. David's Bench Vineyard, and that's the site of the chateau. In the 4 Mile Creek sub-appellation, we have also 2 vineyards. Our Creek Road vineyard, which is the original vineyard and the site of the original winery when we opened in 1978, and also our 7 and 7 vineyard, which all 4 of them are located in the municipality of Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, Canada. So I'm going to go ahead and open this Riesling. Always want to start with the unoaked whites, just to prepare your palate. Now this wine in this vintage, you'll see, is under cork, and subsequently we have switched to screw cap for this particular wine. A little squeaky. There we go. Now, as always, I have a lovely stem, and I'm a firm believer in the stemware enhancing the wine enjoyment experience. And at the Chateau, we will use only Schattenspiegel Triton crystal glasses, and that's what this is. This is a multi-purpose aromatic white wine glass. So in goes some Riesling. Now, since I just opened the bottle, pour a little in and just make sure that it is as fresh and aromatic and as close to what winemaker wanted, so it's not corked. Now, I've always, when I've been training our staff, I always say, let's use our five senses. And believe it or not, when tasting wine, I believe that hearing has an important role to play in the anticipation. So you heard the wine pouring, you heard a little tiny when I opened the bottle with the cork, a little bit of sound with the squeaky cork, and that's okay. And then you move on to all the other senses, so your sight, your smell, your touch, all of those things. So on first glance, although it's kind of hard to see here on the computer screen, but the color is just slightly starting to move to that golden color, which you would kind of expect from a Riesling that is a couple of years old. As white wines get older, they tend to get deeper in color, whereas with reds, they do the opposite. So this wine, I can tell it's starting to, I won't say get old, but it's showing some signs of maturity, meaning it is starting to come into its own. So let's give it a little swirl. On the nose, it really does smell like a classic Alsatian or German Riesling in that you get this wonderful petrol note, some flintiness, some lemon lime, and it still smells fresh. There is still enough fruit in there that you can tell that it is not tired, it's not old. So this is a classic Riesling. No. Using your ears again. You know, your mom told you never to slurp. I encourage you to slurp. And this one, my mouth is still watering. There's so much brisk acidity, you know, that zingy backbone that makes this such a wonderful food wine. So I get a lot of that acidity, some minerality. It's not hot, even though the alcohol is fairly substantial. You know, it's 12.5% alcohol. The residual sugar, technically speaking, I can give you the exact grams, is about 11 grams per liter of residual sugar, which would make it a 1 on the LCBO code. And the acidity is really quite high. The total acidity is 8.1. So, you know, my mouth is still watering, which is really quite remarkable from one little sip. And that's that fresh, zingy acidity. So for me, I really enjoy Riesling of this style when I am having something like a curry or a tikka masala, for example, some wonderfully spiced, warm spices with cardamom and turmeric and that kind of thing. The other thing I would like with this is sushi, because there is a lovely weight to the wine, which makes it a really good pair for a firm fish. So Something like tuna, like a spicy tuna roll, I think would be really good with this. So just as an example. It's also quite yummy on its own. Believe it or not, we are going to be starting thinking about Thanksgiving. It is a month away, can you believe it? And Riesling is a delicious turkey wine. And I often do get asked, what do I serve with my turkey? And really, my answer is, it depends on how you make your turkey. I have heard recipes that go from deep fried, beer can, sage and butter, to you name it, brined and then cooked for a day. Anyway, so there's as many different people in the world who celebrate Thanksgiving. There will be that many recipes for the turkey, and that's great. So for me, what I would try to do with turkey for a Riesling would be a stuffing that maybe was like a wild rice, maybe some butter or some croutons in there, some fresh herbs, but nothing overly complicated, because the wine itself it's fresh and clean, but it has some beautiful mouthfeel. So the turkey should also have some of those characteristics after cooking it as well. So that wonderful crispy skin, which is my favorite part of the turkey. And then, if you're going to maybe stuff it with a sausage-based stuffing, then I think maybe instead of Riesling, I might go to a Pinot Noir as an example. So yes, red wine and chicken can work together. So that is the Riesling, the first wine for tonight. The second wine for tonight, as I said, is a Merlot, single vineyard, single varietal bottling. Now, this is something that we do only in the best years. So in 2007 we made this wine, in 2010 we did. 2009 we did not, in 2011 we did not. Whether or not we make it this year, we don't know. Ask me in a month or so, and I will tell you, because when this wine was picked, when the grapes for this wine was picked, it was actually October 7th in 2010. And until the grapes are actually in the vineyard, that's when we count our chickens. We don't try and make the guess beforehand, because in a matter of 24 hours, there's that sound again. In a span of 24 hours, you can go from having exquisite, high-quality grapes that you would make your top flight wines to, I won't say a disaster, but to where you have issues with either breakdown or something other disastrous that Mother Nature throws at you, which could make the decision on the spot to say, we're not going to make this wine this year, we're going to declassify. Now, declassification is it's a time-honored tradition that is not often used when it could be. And we have done it in about 50% of the vintages for our big reds, because we firmly believe that we would much rather delight you with a $20 wine than disappoint you with a $40 wine. So in many cases, in 50% of the vintages, we will actually declassify the grapes, meaning we won't make our top wines. But the grapes that would have normally gone into this wine will then go into, say, our Old Vines Cab Merlot, or even down another notch into just our regular estate bottle Cab Merlot. So just as an example. But in 2010, we did obviously make this Merlot. Now, again, another Schatz-Wiesel Triton crystal glass, and this one is designed specifically for big reds, or Bordeaux-style reds. Alright, so this is a nice clean bottle. I love that sound. That is the best sound in the world, I think. Sound of wine being poured into a glass. So, this Merlot, Again, when you're checking for color, you want to use a white background and then put the wine up against it. So when you look at it, what I see is some beautiful garnet red around the edge. So it's really holding its color, as you would expect. It's only a couple of years old. And quite frankly, for our big red wines, this wine is still, I would say, a 19 or 20-year-old. It still is trying to decide what it wants to be when it grows up, but it's full of vim and vigor kind of thing. So it still has a long way to go. But if you happen to like wine, big reds, that have a real bite to them, a real beautiful tannic structure that works beautifully with a big steak off the barbecue, this wine is drinking beautifully right now. If you would prefer something that's a little bit more mellow, a little bit more integrated, where the tannins have become a little bit smoother, then what I would do is I'd take this wine and decant it for a good hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. And then you start to get into that softer and silkier tannins. But for now, on the nose, I smell some really bright red cassis, sort of real bright red fruit. And there's also that fragrant cedar and cigar box that are classic of old world Bordeaux grown Merlots. Now, there are very few places in the world where Merlot and Cabernet Franc are actually done in the bottle by themselves. Normally they are used for blending. Merlot in particular is used to take a Bordeaux blend and soften it and integrate the Cabernet Franc and the Cabernet Sauvignon. There are a few places in the world who do Merlot on its own. California is one, obviously. Some of the more warm climate wines, you'll find them, or wine regions, you'll find them in South America as well. And Merlot can be sometimes really quite juicy and fruit forward. And that's wonderful if you like that soft style. But keep in mind, without the tannic structure and that acidic backbone that you'll find in cool climate viticulture, that big juicy fruit bomb from Merlot often does not pair well with wine, with food, and may not have the same aging potential that a more balanced approach like this will have. So cool climate versus warm climate. Cool climate really has to do with growing degree days. Generally speaking, here in Niagara, Canada, and in, say, Burgundy, Chablis, Oregon, Washington State, sort of everywhere along that level of latitude in the Northern Hemisphere would be considered cool climate viticultural regions. And it's not that we don't get the maturation, because clearly we do. Stylistically, we have a different end product. And part of that has to do with what we call diurnal temperature change around the harvest time. So this time of year, September, October, the temperature difference between the night and the day can average at least 10 degrees Celsius or more. So just that variation. What that does is critical for the end flavor profile, because what it does is it allows the grapes to rest at night. So the flavoring matters, the acidity are all retained in the evening without getting that baked, kind of stewed or jammy kind of quality that you will find in the hot climate wines, because at night those grapes are not resting. They are still pulling heat from their surroundings. So they tend to have a different flavor profile. So that's really the difference between the two. Neither's right, neither's wrong. They're just different. It is what it is. And some people have a preference for warm climate wines. Some have a preference for cool climate wines. Some people like both, depending on the mood that they're in. If you want a sipping wine, for example, but you want something red, well, maybe a warm climate Pinot Noir or a Merlot or Carmenere, for example, from South America, maybe up your alley. But if you have a beautiful roast beef coming out of the oven, or a steak off the barbecue, or double cut veal chop coming off that barbecue, something like this Merlot with the beautiful tannin structure and acidic backbone is likely going to pair a little bit better. So that was the nose on the palate. Bright acidity. It's making my mouth water. Bright acidity. So even in a red wine, much like the Riesling that we had earlier, that acidity makes it such a beautiful food wine. I know I keep saying this, but it is so true. There's also the tannins are there. They're forward, but they're not so attacking that you feel like you need to scrape your tongue afterwards. So even though this is a young wine, it will have a good 5 to 7 years left aging potential very easily. You really can enjoy it now. It is still has a ways to go to finally integrate. It's kind of like when you think about going to see a live band. The first set, the guys are playing together, it's going well, you're enjoying it. Second set, boy, they're really starting to mesh. They're really playing off each other. Third set, they are playing individually as one. And that's kind of where this wine is going to end up. Right now, it's kind of in the beginning of the second set, where they're really starting to come together. You can see the way it's going to go, but it hasn't completely integrated yet, which is exciting because we get to watch it evolve. We get to see how it develops. And for us, our wines are like our children. It's kind of like watching your child grow up. You see the direction it's going. You hope to nurture it and treat it well, and eventually it will flourish and blossom and reach its fullest potential. And that's what we hope our wines do. By the time they leave our care and they go into your care, we hope that they are going to reach their fullest potential and you enjoy them. Because at the end of the day, if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. And we're totally cool with that. So those are our wines for tonight. We had an estate bottled Riesling and a Cabernet Merlot our Merlot from our St. David's Bench Vineyard. And look for us again on Facebook and Ustream next month with another pair of wines. And of course, don't forget to sign up for our wine club, where I will send you these wines the week before the next virtual tasting. So the first week of October, 2 wines will go out, and those will be the wines that we will discuss the second Tuesday in October. So thanks very much. Have a great night, and cheers.